And now we're going to go to her friend Carolyn, who works in Washington. And this will be very familiar to a lot of women, this first line. You told me you were going to leave your wife. Carolyn Henderson said, her pale blue eyes filling with tears as she confronted her boss, her lover, the man who had promised her everything and delivered nothing. You faithfully promised it would happen before Christmas. Senator Gregory Stoneman paced around his office, unable to look at the pretty girl with the honey-colored bob and the tears in her eyes. He was a tall man of 50, with a thick head of graying hair, a sharp aquiline profile, and a politician's ready smile. Now listen to me, sweetie, he cajoled. You must... I've been listening to you, Carolyn interrupted. I've listened to you absolutely non-stop for the last 2 years. She stared at him accusingly. You swore to me that we'd be together this Christmas. You promised you'd leave her. I know, but you lied to me, Gregory, she continued, her voice rising. You still haven't told her about us, have you? Tears began to curse down her cheeks in an uncontrollable torrent. Gregory Stoneman frowned. There was nothing more irritating than a crying female. Bad enough that he had to put up with it from his wife on occasion. Now this one was starting to become extremely demanding. He didn't need this kind of nonsense. Besides, he'd recently met a British journalist, the London correspondent for an upmarket UK newspaper. The girl was young and fresh, and looks-wise she put Carolyn to shame, although he had to admit that Carolyn did have a sensational body, great tits, which was one of the reasons he'd strung her along with all the false proclamations that one day he was definitely going to divorce his wife. As if. There was a game in Washington, and the game had stringent rules. An affair is an affair, and it never interfered with a marriage. Everyone who cared to play should learn to abide by the rules. Hush, he said soothingly. Screw hush, she shouted. After Christmas, he began. No, she shrieked. You promised, and I expect you to keep that promise, or what? He said ominously. Or I'm telling your wife about us, since you can't seem to do it. Her words hung between them like a dark curtain. Gregory's frown deepened. If only her boyfriend, Matt, had stayed around, this wouldn't be happening. But no, Matt had made an abrupt exit. And where did that leave him? Stuck with a clinging girl who was starting to make demands he had no intention of meeting. Right, typical politician. And then we go to Lucky Santangelo's son, Bobby. Lucky has been a fabulous character to write about. I've written about her in 6 books. I've written 10 hours of prime time for NBC television, produced the miniseries. She was Nicolette Sheridan in one of them. She was Kim Delaney in another. And I've had so much fun with Lucky. And still on my Facebook and on my computer and everywhere, people go, bring back Lucky. So I'm bringing her back in this book a little bit. But in the next book, which is going to be called Goddess of Vengeance, it's going to be called The Continuing Adventures of Lucky Santangelo. So see how you like Bobby. When Bobby Santangelo Stanilopoulos walked into her room, women took notice. Not only was he over 6 feet tall, in his mid-20s and undeniably hot, he possessed great style, with his longish jet hair, intense black eyes, Greek nose and strong jawline. He drove women a little bit crazy. And it wasn't about being incredibly good-looking, which he was, and it wasn't about being the heir to a major fortune, which he was. No, it was just a certain something, a hint of the young John Kennedy, Jr., a touch of the Ashton Kutcher edge, and the mysterious allure of a Robert Pattinson. Bobby's Greek billionaire father, the late Dmitri, had been a powerful man, a true force in the business world of shipping and commerce. Bobby had never bothered any desire to follow in his father's footsteps. That kind of business was not for him, nor did he wish to emulate his mother's successes. The wildly beautiful Lucky Santangelo, a woman who had always done things her way, had made a fortune building several fabulous Las Vegas luxury hotels and then running and owning Panther Studios for several years. Bobby had always been surrounded by high achievers. Apart from his parents, there was his stepfather, Lenny Golden, a former comedian, movie star, who now wrote and directed highly successful independent films, and his maternal grandfather, the fabulous Gino Santangelo. So, what was a young college guy supposed to do to make his own mark in the world? Fortunately, Bobby had big ideas of his own. Without asking anyone's permission or opinion, he dropped out of college and headed for New York with his best friend MJ, the son of a renowned African-American neurosurgeon. The two of them had put together a group of investors, enabling them to open Mood, a private club which after a few months had taken off and become the late-night place of choice. Bobby was a hybrid of both parents. He'd inherited Dimitri's dominant personality, along with his acute business savvy, and he possessed lucky